everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Catholic Talk Show. My name is Ryan Delacrosse. We have Ryan Scheel and Father Rich Pagano with us here today.
Hey, good morning, guys.
What's going on?
Hey. So today we're going to talk about the secrets of the Vatican, right?
That's right.
And if you guys are listening right now on your podcast, you can also find us on YouTube, Stitcher, Facebook,
Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah,
all those services. If you go to
and you can find us. You can find us in Hollywood too at Cast Media.
That's right.
If you want to come by for one of the shows, we're going by.
Yeah, tallest building in Hollywood, Cast Media Studios. It's a beautiful place.
Pretty cool. Right. Pretty cool. So So let us. What are we going to talk about today? I mean, like, what kind of secrets are we talking about? Everybody likes secrets.
I love secrets.
Yes,
these are all.
Secretist about it.
We're gonna be pretty. No, we're exposing the Vatican.
Yeah, awesome.
No, so the Vatican. It's really one of the most historical sites in the entire world, and a place that has so much meaning and so much of history passed through it is bound to come up with some very interesting and kind of obscure places, references, and things that just most people won't know about. So
just by nature of being there.
That's right.
For that long.
So we're going to do our best Indiana Jones here, and we're going to go into the Tower of the Winds at the Vatican.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right. And we're going to go into the secret tunnel under the Vatican that most people don't know about.
Huh.
And we're also going to talk about why the Vatican has the highest crime rate in the world. And for all you conspiracy theorists out there, we're going to crack into the Vatican secret archives.
It's all a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy.
Nice. I'm excited, Ryan.
That's right.
This is exciting. Father Rich, are you excited?
I can't even sit still in my chair right now, Ryan.
Yeah, he's got his tinfoil collar on. All right.
So let's jump in. What do we got? Tower of the Winds first?
So have you guys ever been to the Vatican?
Yes.
Number of times, yes.
I went with my wife.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And my baby girl, one of my baby girls.
And I had this awesome experience with the Midwest Theological Forum, and I studied over there for a summer at Santa Croce University, and we had a full immersion culturally in Rome. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah. I didn't get pickpocketed, though. I'm hearing there's a crime rate, so.
That's right. The Vatican actually has the highest crime rate in the world of any country.
But it's small, though. Right, I mean, it's a very tiny state, right? It's probably the size of what, Delaware or something?
No, the Vatican's actually smaller than Central Park in New York.
That was a joke, by the way. I'm not that dumb.
Delaware.
Yeah, sure, Ryan. We all believe you.
It is pretty small. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So just because of the transient nature of the people who make up the population during the day. I mean, I think there's somewhere between 800 and 1,000 actual citizens of the Vatican.
Yeah.
But because it's a really highly trafficked...
Wait, did you say 800,000 citizens?
800 to 1,000 citizens.
800 to 1,000.
That's right.
Okay. Man, those are some really bad people. Stealing all that stuff.
800 people, and it's like, really?
800 crimes a day.
Get yourself together.
And make sure you get your crime quota in today, Padre. No, just because, everyone's going there and there's, wide open spaces. Yeah. And
a lot of people are there and they're going in
back
and out.
Forth.
And there's a lot of, predatory
a lot of tourists,
thieves.
A lot of people carrying cash on them, and pickpockets.
Yeah.
It's just,
one of the ladies I was with got pickpocketed. Yeah.
I was on a bus with about 40 guys,
where they do it.
seminarians, right? And we're all wearing cassocks. And I look over at my buddy and Thomas, and this guy was reaching into his pocket in his cassock.
Wow.
And I called him out, and the guy jumped off the bus at the next stop. Like, it was just perfect timing for him to jump off the bus.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff goes down a lot there.
Watch your pockets.
If you go into the Vatican,
watch
put zippers on it.
I always keep my hands in my pocket everywhere I go. When I'm in a big crowd of people.
It's crazy.
Your hand on your belongings.
Not used to that kind of stuff here,
Not like that.
Even in New York.
As concentrated as it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel completely safe in East Cleveland, but when I go to the Vatican, man, watch it. Roll your windows up,
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Get ready.
Kids, roll up the windows. We're in the Vatican. Just look forward. Look forward. Don't look out the windows. No eye contact.
Duck.
No, actually, the crime rate's actually per capita 100%.
Wow.
So, according to statistics, if you can believe them, 100% crime rate in Vatican City. But according to
what's the crime rate? Is it a crime per person?
Per capita.
Yeah.
1,000 crimes.
1,000
people, and they say there's at least 1,000 crimes a year.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Which is, averages out to 3 a day. So that's 100% crime rate. But most of it is people coming in on the foot
Sure.
traffic, from Rome and into Vatican City. So
Yeah. Tell you what, man.
so if any of you guys are planning a pilgrimage out there,
It's not a secret anymore.
watch your stuff.
It's not a secret.
It's not a
anymore.
secret.
Yeah, we just exposed it.
We're exposing Vatican secret.
Yes.
Exposed.
What you got next, man? What are
So-
we talking about? I like the tunnel thing. That
tunnel?
sounds interesting. Tunnels are always cool. We were reading about that last night. The tunnels in Oregon.
Oh yeah,
Sad.
different tunnels. Though.
Sad, yeah. But I mean, it's kind of cool. Like how people was just digging underground. Making paths and stuff.
This tunnel was between Castel St. Angelo and the Vatican, right?
That's right. So, the Vatican has always been, back when it was, the Papal States, it really was a capital of a secular power as well. So, I mean, you've had a lot of invasions in history of, various emperors of Europe invading Vatican City to either, break this power or that power, or to, gain
Attila the Hun was one of them.
Attila. I mean, you've had, even Christian kings were coming in there and raiding Rome to kind of apply their influence over the papacy. Whether it was rival claimants for the Holy Roman Emperor, or if it was, France because the Pope was supporting, this German prince over this. So there's been a lot of invasions. And because of this, the Pope had to make sure that he had escape routes, right? Because if you're in the Vatican, you're in St. Peter's, it's a nice place as far as places go to be trapped in, but you don't want to be trapped in there forever.
Yeah, and it's kind of shaped in a
The
way.
idea of prisoner of the Vatican.
Yeah, I don't get it.
So,
You don't want to get it. And you don't want
all
it.
right, let's go. Here we go.
you guys know Italian better than me, but it's called the Passetto di Borgo or Borgio. So, it's named after Pope Alexander VI, who was, the Borgia Pope. And he had it built, and it's 2,600 feet, goes under St. Peter's Square from St. Peter's into the Castle St. Angelo. And that was his...
Uh,
It's a pretty good route to get out
Oh yeah.
if you've ever been there.
And the fortress itself, I mean, is pretty.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge. And
Yeah.
very, very well protected.
It's
if you're in
fortified.
there. It's very fortified.
It's fortified.
Right? And it's got St. Michael on top
Yeah,
of it with
that's
a
pretty
sword,
cool.
It's
That's pretty cool.
pretty intimidating.
And the river's right there too, right?
River's right there.
Yeah.
You've heard of the event where a large amount of the Swiss Guard were massacred. It's remembered, in Rome to this day. It was very, heroic activities of the Swiss Guard. But this is one example where the Pope had to use it. The Swiss Guard were in this tunnel, fighting people in the tunnel while the Pope was behind them, and he was giving them, they were giving him room to escape. And I think, it was the French were invading, and they held him off inside the tunnel so the Pope can get by. And story ends up he made it, but most of the Swiss Guard did not.
What I love about the whole idea of having an escape route for the Pope, for the Holy Father, is all in defense, and even the Swiss Guard, it's all in defense of the succession of Peter. That this is an important reality in the church, is the apostolic succession. Mm-hmm. And this is what's been passed down from generation to generation. I mean, we were even talking about it last night, is that there's a power to that through the laying on of hands, every generation from St. Peter and all the apostles has then passed down into the structures of our church even today.
Yeah.
So our lineage is rooted in that. And there's a defense of the apostolic foundation of the church. And there should be a defense of the Holy Father.
Yeah.
That's why we always pray for him. And we not only physical harm, but also spiritual harm, because there's ill will out there and there's the presence of manifest evil.
Yeah.
And that could be an incredible thing to battle, so we need to battle that together. And certainly I'm thinking about the Holy Father today, Pope Francis, saying a little prayer for him.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, like, just the Vatican, it's probably been under siege a lot. If you think about
there's
like just
been so many instances. Yeah.
And what's there right now with St. Peter's Basilica, it's like there's a church beneath that and then another one beneath that. I went on that tour, underneath, and it's
the
like
Scavi tour.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. It was just meandering through these graveyards, basically underneath the church. It's like these guys just keep building on top of things.
It's fascinating seeing that burial ground there, and you see all of the graffiti from 2,000 years ago. This Christian graffiti,
they're tagging,
and they're tagging stuff. These brothers were going down
Put
there.
That fish on there, man.
Well, I think that's a good segue into what we're talking about next, because Next, we're going to go into the catacombs underneath.
Oh, yeah. It's
Vatican.
not secret to me.
It's not secret.
Not secret to me either.
Right.
You been on that tour?
But there's probably a lot of people out there that know nothing about the catacombs or the excavations that happened
That's right.
in
It's
the
pretty
mid-20th
cool.
century. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not really a graveyard per se. So back in the Roman times, there was roads or vias, and along that they would build little mausoleums for the deceased, and there was basically like a street of the dead. So it was just a row of mausoleums. So what's actually under the Vatican is a road that ran parallel to the Circus of Nero. And rich Romans or whomever would have these buildings constructed, and their family crypts would be inside of them. So it's more.
It wasn't like a graveyard. It wasn't like this big area that we know today, where you buy up a bunch of acres and you have plots. This is like they decide that this road is where they're going to just put all the mausoleums.
That's right. It's like a street, and along it is just lined with all these.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because they had like these little portholes that went straight down to the crypts where your beloved were dead or their dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And then you would pour libations down there. And it was a part of daily life. Think about walking down the street.
Pouring one out for the homies?
Yeah, pouring one out for my grandma. Like, here's a little, fruit juice.
Then you tag it. You tag the mausoleum.
It's like, your
Put that fish
grandson
on
was
there.
here.
So it's funny that you bring up tagging, because that's precisely what happened to allow the discovery of the bones of St. Peter. So, along this mausoleum road, right by Nero's circus, which is where St. Peter was crucified, upside down
yeah.
in Nero's circus.
Yeah.
So then,
A lot of bad stuff went on there.
a lot of bad stuff. Yeah. Gambling.
And there were
lottery.
probably pickpockets there,
Pickpockets.
too. Oh,
yeah, this
Highest
is
crime rate in Rome.
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff that went on there. And it's not to be confused with the Colosseum. Completely separate place.
Completely
Yeah.
separate. The Colosseum was more of an
Other side of town.
it's a Colosseum, right?
Yeah.
But this is more of a almost like a long U-shaped horse track.
Yep.
And there was a lot of chariot races, and then in the middle was, just a common area of it, and that's where St. Peter would have been crucified.
Yeah.
So then, after he was cut down, because he was crucified upside down, and the soldiers cut him off.
Yeah.
Cut him off at the feet.
the feet.
At the feet.
Yeah.
And then
Easy to get in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's very graphic representation.
Well, yeah. Okay.
He was Italian. I mean, let's face it, he's a Della Croce. His family line was probably there.
I'm hot-blooded. I think about these things.
Gross.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the faithful took St. Peter's body, and because the close proximity of this row of catacombs, they took him essentially across the street and buried him, and in a small crypt along this row. And the Romans didn't really understand the significance of how Christianity and how the faith would celebrate in these places that were celebrating the saints, the dead saints and the martyrs. So they didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
But the early Christians were going there and celebrating Mass there secretly, just like they do in the catacombs.
Yeah.
But so that really is the inception of St. Peter's Basilica, was basically a small mausoleum. So they were renovating the Vatican in the early, I believe, 1920s or 30s. And they were going along this road, which is now, in the ancient world, they didn't level stuff. They didn't have bulldozers. So
Right.
what they did is they
Fill it in.
They filled it in, and then they built on top of it.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of history is preserved, because of the way that building construction
Right.
was. So as they were, the Vatican was doing renovations, they were able to go and underneath, and they're doing the excavations, and directly below the high altar of St. Peter's was one of these catacombs. And on the wall,
Well, didn't they have a church before that, like in the 3rd century or something?
well, yeah,
that?
the St. Peter's that exists now is not always the same first St. Peter's.
Right.
The first St. Peter's was built in the 300s.
Gotcha.
Right.
After Christianity was made legal.
Yeah, after Constantine. And that one the first St. Peter's existed until the 1500s. But
And then the one that we know of today is on top of that.
right, but the
Gotcha.
foundations were starting to crumble, and it was really starting to become
dangerous for people.
Dangerous.
And the pickpocketers. We got to keep them safe.
And it wasn't even the preferred church of Rome. And, more people went to St. Paul's outside the walls or, St. Mary Major. Those were, and the Vatican was kind of like, it wasn't the
Not
important
as popular
church.
as it was for pilgrims.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this, when they were reconstructing it, it's a little bit after the Avignon papacy. So I think it was really to restore some of the prestige of the papacy in Rome that they went about building the new St. Peter's.
Yeah.
So anyway, get back to tagging.
Yeah.
They found a graffiti that said, Peter is here, or I think it was Petri Indi, which means Peter is inside. And it was, I believe, written in Greek, actually. So they opened it up, and they found a small nook, and inside of it were bones directly under this altar of St. Peter.
Them bones.
So if you literally take a penny and drop it from the top of the cupola, the very center of it, it would drop down through the baldacchino, through the main altar, the central part of the main altar, all the way down to the tomb of St. Peter and his bones. It's absolutely
And it wasn't
fascinating.
planned. That's the whole
That's
grace
the
about it.
fascination.
Yeah.
About, like the behind it is like the Spirit of God was definitely at work in relation to building what is today St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah.
I remember walking through the Scavi tour, one of my first experiences there, and as I was walking down this roadway, as Sheil was describing, I saw all of this graffiti on the wall, and it just started to grow and increase all these different Christian symbols, and then being pointed to, like this is precisely where St. Peter's bones are. But inside, you're like feeling it as you're getting closer and closer, and like the intensity of the Spirit's just weighing on you, and it's like this is a powerful place of prayer.
Yeah.
And you walk through the Clementine Chapel, which is this small little chapel that I was so privileged to celebrate Mass in, and with my family, and convalidate my uncle and aunt's, marriage, which was so cool. My first year of priesthood. But right there is like the foundation when you think of St. Peter the Rock, that Jesus is going to build his church upon St.
scripture.
Peter. Like, literally.
Matthew 16:18.
Yeah. And it's you get a sense of that. And it's like, wow, God, you're calling me to this foundation.
Yeah.
And encountering that, it changes your life forever.
Peter, you are a rock, and upon this rock I will build my church. And on that rock is the actual
Bones of Peter.
And on top of that is the Vatican, and that is the seat of the church. And I think that's something that is lost on a lot of people, that when Jesus said, I will build my church on you, the rock,
He meant he was a contractor and that he was going to make that happen.
that's right.
You know
Where's
what?
that heresy button?
I'm sorry to bring light to this. No, man, I almost got kicked out of the Scavi tour.
Dude, there's never been a more Ryan Delacroix story than I almost got kicked out of the Scavi
So
tour.
I'm with my wife, right? And my best friend, God rest his soul, he passed away, but I was best man in his wedding at one of the churches there, and everybody's like, you got to go on the Scavi tour. So I'm on the internet and I'm like, and I send it, and it's like, and I'm like, is this in English? I don't know. And I thought the email that I got after I put my credit card in, that was like my email confirmation, kind of like here in America, we just take it and we're like, here, I'm going, So we get there, and the guy is just like, this wound up Italian guy, and he's like, I'm trying to talk to you, man. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, Jen, I got this email, and she was, well, obviously this is not going to get us in. The
voice of reason.
Yeah. So this priest comes over and he grabs me and he goes, I can get you in. I was like, oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man. He goes, no.
He was trying to steal your wallet. He's like, no, I can get you in.
Here, come here, walk over here. No, and so he's like, here's the trick. You walk in, you got a baby, you got a wife, you walk in and you pretend like you belong there. Mm-hmm. And apparently that's like the thing there. And so we walked in and I just nodded at the guy, like, I can do that. I can pretend like I belong places. So we nodded, we went right on in.
No stop whatsoever.
That was it. I was looking behind my back for, at least about 30 minutes. I wasn't focusing on that power you were talking about. I was focusing on, the authorities, I guess.
Well, there you have it, people. Ryan Delacroix, Gatecrashed the Vatican.
Yeah.
This
With
is
my wife. So
And
you can't put it all on me.
And
She was
circumnavigated the
complicit.
defense systems of the Swiss Guard. How did you do that?
There was no Swiss Guard.
He went in through the secret tunnel.
Yeah, they're packing. They got swads.
Packing the heat.
They got swads.
Yeah, that's the kind of people you're listening to, everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. I wanted to go.
So anyway, yeah. So they found the bones. They were wrapped in purple cloth with gold thread, and they did a scientific analysis of them. And all the scientific analysis, you can't conclusively say without, better historical methods that these are the bones of St. Peter. But, if you were taking a circumstantial case, tradition for 2,000 years have said they were there.
Right.
There's ancient graffiti. There's a church built to St. Peter. And the bones were identified of a robust man of Middle Eastern origin between the ages of 60 and 70 whose feet were missing. I mean, if you're building a circumstantial
That's pretty
case,
conclusive.
that is.
And the spirit in your visit, like that was very conclusive to you. I was at Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John Paul II.
Pope Saint John Paul
Saint.
II. That's the order.
Get it right, Ryan.
I'm not here. I'm not here to be right.
Are you like even Catholic?
You're here to be right.
You're like breaking all the rules.
Did you just give somebody a nod and walk in the building? Is that how you got in? No, man. It's that's an amazing story.
Yep.
Do
you know where the bones are kept now?
No.
They've only been displayed publicly one time, and that was a few years ago. Pope Francis, for the first time, displayed them publicly, but typically they're kept in a lead box in the Pope's personal apartment.
Wow.
A lead box.
Yeah.
Why lead?
Why not?
You think why?
I
but
can't
why
answer
not?
that. I can't answer that.
There you go.
That's
story.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So, and to this day,
Yeah.
well, not to this day, since Pope Francis doesn't live in the papal apartments, but the popes were roommates with the first pope, and I think that's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Them bones.
all right, now let's go back up to surface level. You guys have both been in St. Peter's Square, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What's the thing that stands out right in the middle of St. Peter's Square?
The obelisk.
The obelisk.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, one of 33 Egyptian obelisks and like authentic ones from Egypt in Italy, in Rome.
That was made in
That's
Egypt.
one, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Crazy.
the Emperor Augustus, actually. So there's a long history as to why there is an Egyptian obelisk in the middle of St. Peter's Square. It seems kind of out of place.
Strange.
So the Roman Emperor Augustus,
Not just strange, but secretive.
It's secret.
it's the secret of the Vatican, everyone.
Don't tell anyone.
Normally we're going to tell you to share all of our podcasts. Don't share this one.
It's a secret.
Otherwise,
Keep it to yourself, all right?
that's right. You know what, guys? Could we just remove the share button from this video? That's great. All right. So Augustus had it dismantled. It came from Alexandria, Egypt, which
That's like the main town there, right? It's like
at the
big
time
city.
it was the
Yeah.
big port city, and it was kind of a trophy of war that the Romans had, taken over Egypt from the Greeks. Actually, at the time, it was the Greeks who were descended from one of Alexander's generals who were ruling Egypt. They were called the Ptolemies. And the Romans took over, and as a trophy of war, they brought back this obelisk from Egypt. There's even a legend that on top of it there's a bronze ball, and that the ashes of Julius Caesar were placed inside of it.
I'd never heard that.
That's right.
Fascinating.
They opened it up later, and they only found dust. So maybe someone
Ashes
took
to
them.
ashes.
That's right.
Dust to dust.
That's right.
So
Do you believe?
this monument was placed right in the center of that circus of Nero. That was kind of the focal point. And the tradition is that the last thing that St. Peter saw when he was being crucified upside down, he was directly looking at that obelisk. That's what he could see based on where he was crucified and his eyesight and the angle of where he'd view. So
Going back to the circus.
that's right. So the last thing that St. Peter saw was this. Now, you would think that the church would, have this removed, this, pagan symbol, but I think it really shows how the triumph of Christianity over all the empires, the triumph of, Christ over the nations and the powers. And it's actually today, it's the only It's the largest standing Egyptian obelisk in the world.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's crazy when you're there. Like, you know, me just growing up in Florida, you know, it's like the guy who had the office over here is now over there. You know, this used to be a gas station. Now it's a mini mart. And you go over there and it's like, remember the metal that was on the Pantheon? Well, it's now inside St. Peter's. They melted it down. It's like the whole economy there of just history. It's just the whole place is like a museum.
So rich, man.
It's so rich.
Yeah, I grew up in Palm Coast, just like an hour south of you from Jacksonville. And, you know, through the 90s, there was nothing in Palm Coast. It was like a four-way stop sign in the late 80s. And then into the 90s, we had this huge boom. Yeah. And, you know, there's no history. Florida. There's no history. But it's like, it's true. It's like, that was where the Little Champ was. That's where we would walk down to the street and go get, you know, a sweet tea, you know, kind of a thing. And, you know, but it's true. When you walk around the ancient cities like Rome, for example, or Ephesus or Jerusalem, there's such a sense of there has been generation after generation for millennia. Mm-hmm. And there's so many fascinating stories that we can uncover. Yeah. And the ones that we're uncovering today, even though they're secrets and you can't share them, don't you touch that button. It's so rich. Like, it just really, it fills your lungs with a breath of life. It's like, wow, there's so much more to explore, to adventure out into the world and really discover what's out there. It's
appreciate history.
All right, so before we get any tweets at us saying that we misspoke, the obelisk didn't originally come from Alexandria. It originally came from Heliopolis. Or Heliopolis.
What are you trying to do to the listeners right now?
I'm correcting myself.
Are you confused? Oh, okay. You're making it.
So it was originally made under an unknown pharaoh in, in Upper Egypt, and then moved by Augustus to the Forum in Alexandria, and then from there to Rome. So just in case I had to hear any tweets that I don't know my stuff.
You hear tweets?
I do.
Oh,
it's one of the secrets. Tweet. When we do these podcasts, we all stay together, right? And we got to get ready in the morning. We're sharing one bathroom. And Father Rich's getting ready process, it's like an Easter Mass. It's 3 hours long and completely sung. It's just the whole time.
Fly with me. Let's float down to Peru.
Yeah, me and the two Ryans, it's like 5 minutes in and out like we're in the military. And him, it's like the Easter Vigil Mass, like 6 hours long. Everything is sung. It's just ridiculous. All right, now this one's for all of the conspiracy theorists out there, and this is probably the thing that more conjecture and more, questions have come up than just about anything in the Vatican. And that's the Vatican Secret Archives or the Vatican Secret Library. Now, I mean, if you go online and you're on conspiracy, forums or
the History Channel
or the History Channel,
I got to tell you something though, guys. My last name is Pagano. There was a Cardinale Pagano, who was in charge of the library for a little while.
That's right.
In recent time?
Yeah, in recent time, like probably like about 5 years ago or something.
That narrows it down.
Never really tracked him down though.
No.
Yeah. I would have loved to have a little bit of the secrets of the Vatican poured into my brain, but didn't get that chance.
You never responded.
No, like with family,
It's terrible.
So, everyone speculates what's in there. Is there secrets that the Vatican knows that there's aliens, or, is there historical, evidence that Jesus was actually married, or all these crazy things. And
the time they didn't file for taxes in the Roman Empire.
That's right.
Or sorry,
documents hiding their secret crime rate. So, but really the problem comes from people not understanding translations, and they understand that, well, it's the secret archive. So there must be secret, Vatican secrets.
Yeah.
They're inside there.
Don't tweet it.
Don't tell anyone.
It's really a mistranslation or a misunderstanding of how Latin translates into English. So it's
Secretio.
The Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum, right? Which means, no, that's right. But in Latin, the secret part, it doesn't really mean like, it's a secret, don't tell anyone.
Gotcha.
It really means that the sense of the Latin word is really, this is the personal archives.
Gotcha.
So it's really kind of a bad translation. So if you really...
So we're debunking secrets right
That's
now.
right.
That's what we're doing.
At least the whole concept in America of what a secret is.
This is etymology. We're conquering this word.
That's right.
With etymology.
So, I mean, really, I think a better translation into English would be the Vatican Personal Library.
Yeah.
And really, it's historical documents and it's all, records of
Pretty cool stuff.
Of the papacy, things that were personally related. I mean, there is some really cool things in there.
Is that stuff public? Like, can you go to the Vatican
You
Museum?
can go
'Cause I've been
online.
there.
You can go online and you can view a lot of the documents. And every year they release more and more because they get them digitized.
Yeah, and we're doing. Is Frank Hanna's papyrus in there?
I know that's in the Vatican Library Museum.
Okay.
The Vatican
Different place.
Museum. It's a different place.
Gotcha.
But they grant scholars all the time the right to go in there and view
Research.
the documents. Yeah. So it's not really secret. It's not really hidden. You can go in there and find anything. But
I love ancient languages like Latin, Greek, and studied it in undergrad. Don't remember a lot of it, but it just really breaks open some of the meanings of what words are in English. The word secretum it has multiple meanings, like any ancient word. So there's many variations of how you could translate it. And it gives about 6 here: secret, secrecy, seclusion, mystery, isolation, solitude. But the whole idea of mystery uncovered, there is the fullness of God's revelation that has poured out upon the apostolic church. And ultimately it begins in mystery and ends in mystery. And the greatest treasures of the church in the Vatican's library, in the secret library, the greatest mysteries that we should really ponder and think about and pray with so that we can grow and engage them. So I think when it comes to what the church has in its treasury is something that it wants to protect and wants to isolate from just regular contact, because they are treasures and you do have to keep them safe.
Yeah. That's right. They have a very, very rigid, which I'm sure, don't tell Pope Francis I said that, but a very rigid way of protecting the documents. Scholars are allowed to go in. They're allowed to request up to 3 documents. They have a certain amount of time that they're allowed to view them. And if they go in and the curator cannot find the document quickly, they say, you got to leave for the day, come back, we'll give it for you tomorrow, because they don't spend time looking for it. It's like, so, and they, the protocols of protecting these documents is very...
what kind of documents are we talking about here?
There's,
like the first cartoon, like what are we dealing with?
No, so there's
Aristotle's original works. I think we have those.
53 miles of shelving, 35,000 volumes in the catalogs. Now, some of the things that are included in the Vatican Secret Archives. Whoa. Don't tell anyone. So there's letters from Michelangelo complaining that he wasn't paid for the work on the Sistine Chapel.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right. There's a letter from Henry VIII.
Wow.
There's a letter from Henry VIII to Pope Clement VII asking for an annulment for his marriage to Catherine of Aragon.
What?
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's the transcript of the trial of Galileo.
Wow.
Which, by the way, Galileo was wrong. We'll do another episode on that.
That's cool.
The church was actually right, and Galileo was wrong because he was...
Did they like cut his head off or something?
No, they gave him a nice house, and his daughter became a nun.
Oh, okay, different
No,
Galileo.
basically, no, it's the same Galileo. Oh. So we're gonna.
You're talking about Galileo from on the Upper East Side.
Yeah, no, he's from Staten Island.
Oh, he's from Staten Island. No,
yeah,
you guys get
Vinny Galileo.
Galileo. Yeah, he did get his head chopped off. I remember that.
Yeah, Vinny Galileo. Isn't that Karen Labruciano's son?
They call him Vinny Boobots.
Yeah. So what else they got? They have the papal bull of Leo X excommunicating.
Did you say papal bull?
Papal bull of Leo X.
What's a bull?
Seal.
Stamp.
Oh, okay.
Stamp. Yeah.
I mean, these people listening, they need to know this stuff.
Bullo.
There would be a much longer podcast.
Yeah.
So the papal bull of Leo X excommunicating Martin Luther. Mm-hmm. There's a letter from Mary, Queen of Scots, to Pope Sixtus V, asking for the church to save her before she was beheaded, right? Because
How do they keep these letters this long? Like,
preservation, Ryan.
What do they put, like air in it or something?
No, because it's not. A lot of this isn't paper. A lot of it, these kinds of documents were usually on
tablets.
No, something called vellum, and vellum was a stretched and specifically treated lambskin. Right,
of course.
So it's much better than paper, and it lasts a lot longer and is much more stable. And the way that they would kind of tan it, which is almost like making leather, they created vellum, and it lasts a long time.
Huh.
There's a letter from Abraham Lincoln and another a rival letter from Jefferson Davis. Both of these letters sent to the Pope of the time of the Civil War, the American Civil War, asking them to support Pius IX, to support their cause, whether he would support the Confederates or the Union.
Huh.
Interesting.
Wow.
There's a letter
cool
by
stuff.
Clement the XII to the 7th Dalai Lama of Tibet, saying, please protect the Franciscan missionaries in Tibet because they were being persecuted. So, I mean, there was a lot of cool things, and these are just some of them.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, there's 53 miles. We could do a podcast on.
And there's things in history too. I don't know if you could comment on this, Ryan, is the whole concept of sealing certain historical documents for a period of time that then is open to be reviewed, like Pius XII
Well,
and the
the-
myth of Hitler's Pope kind of a thing.
Yeah.
A lot of times they did that because the time that it's sealed allows for the death of all the people who had a personal vested interest in the matter. And it wouldn't have been able, these documents wouldn't have been able to be, analyzed impartially because the people were still connected to whatever particular cause or whatever particular faction was around these documents. So by giving it a sealed amount of time, it allows for an objectivity for, historians to really view the documents with, a critical eye, not
Yeah.
biased. Now, remember we talked about that
They wouldn't be
secret tunnel.
tagging, so they don't be tagging it.
That's right. So remember we talked about that secret tunnel. One of the times that Rome was invaded was by Napoleon. And Napoleon, he messed stuff up. He tore Rome up. He even kidnapped Pius VII. So, and he kidnapped Pius VII and hauled him back to France. And along with him, all the treasures of the Vatican and thousands and thousands and thousands of ancient documents from the secret archives. There were so many of these archives brought back to France that people were using them as like scrap paper, or they were putting them in candles to make wicks. They were wrapping food in them. They were using 1,500-year-old church documents because there were so many of them, they didn't know what to do with them. And they were using them as, scrap paper and, wrapping fish in them, starting their fires as kindling with them. And, that really kind of put a big dent in it. And after, a lot of the documents were returned, they've really spent the last 100 years really reorganizing. But it's only been since, I don't know, the mid 1950s that the archives were really kind of back in place.
Taking shape.
From 1880s until 1950s, where they were really kind of reorganizing everything.
Wow.
So,
Wow. That's insane.
That is insane.
yeah.
It's just crazy. You look at history, especially Western civilization, where all these wars and everything were going on. It's just like endless, right? And you see these monks, they're writing the Bible. There's no printing press for centuries. They're keeping cultural history, right? Art, science, different things like that. And they're the keepers of it. There's the custodians of it. And during the wars, they were afraid this stuff would go away and people would just be like,
That's why,
the culture would be
escaping
void
into
from
the
it.
mountains and, placing these treasures and hiding them away was just regular activity.
Yeah,
for
think
them.
of what Napoleon could have done.
Oh, yeah.
He could have, erased a lot of history.
He
right?
did erase a lot of history.
Yeah.
So,
Now it's just history
Go.
of fire in people's houses.
or fish, or,
Stanky
whatever.
fish.
Stanky fish.
Ugh, ew.
All right, so we're going to take you to one last secret place in the Vatican. Don't tell anyone. You guys going to tell anyone?
Why? Why are you asking me that?
I'm a jibba jabba. I kind of run my mouth, so I can't promise.
All right, then
when
I
I'm
know
going
we
to
know
keep
what a
you
secret
secrets.
is.
All
Yeah,
right.
we know what a
Well, it's
secret
okay.
is.
So, one of the tallest points in the structures of the Vatican is a tower called the Gregorian Tower, or, more commonly known as the Tower of the Winds. Now, the Tower of the Winds is Yeah, it's a small four-sided structure above, one of the wings of the Vatican Library. I'm sorry, not the Vatican Library, but just, in the Vatican. And it was built for a really cool and really specific purpose. So if you go back in time to the Roman Emperor Julius.
Go back in time.
Back in time. That's one of the secrets is time travel.
Okay, I'm back there.
Okay. So we're back in time.
Where am I again?
So we're back in
There's a time capsule in the Vatican that you can get inside and go back in time?
No. If you go back to the Roman Emperor Julius, he established what's called the Julian calendar, right? And he reorganized the calendar and specifically made it 365 days like we know is, is fairly
Julian
accurate.
calendar, yeah.
Right. But the problem was that they didn't account for the fact that the Earth's year is not 365 days even. There's, a discrepancy. It's not an even amount of numbers.
The leap year.
Right. So they weren't accounting for that. So what happened in the 1500 years between dummies?
Get it together.
So what happened in the 1500 years between Julius and the time of Pope Gregory the 13th was that the calendar had shifted because they didn't account for these extra minutes every year. And the calendar, so the big thing was liturgically Easter. Father, do you know why Easter falls on the day it does?
Because of the moon?
But because of the moon, yeah.
Right. So Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox.
Yeah.
Right. Which kind of follows along with the old Jewish lunar calendars because that's how they would have calculated Passover. Right. So that's how we know the date of Easter.
Right.
Which should have been on March 21st, the vernal equinox, give around there, right? But over time, the calendar had shifted so much because they weren't accounting for
the extra
leap
minutes.
days that by the 1500s, they were almost, I think, 10 to 12 days off, right? So it was a significant amount of time.
They didn't have the Google calendar.
They didn't have the Google calendars, that's right. So what they did is they commissioned this building and they had a scientist build this. It's essentially an observatory, and this room is on top, and there's a lot of small holes in the walls, right? And that's why they call it the Tower of Winds, because wind will blow in through these holes. But the holes were lined up so that on the equinox, the sun would come in from a specific point in one hole, and if it were to align with a line on the floor, it would verify the model that they had come up for the rotation of the Earth around the sun and verify the exact length of the year, which is exactly what happened. So it was tested in 1582 on March 11th, which meant that the calendar was 10 days off. They were able to prove that it was 10 days off. So what they did is on October 4th, 1582, Pope Gregory said, tomorrow is not going to be October 5th. Tomorrow is going to be October 15th. He wiped 10 days off the map. Gone completely. Those 10 days in history never happened.
I was down in Paraguay and we were doing a mission and we were building some schools for some of the orphan kids of Asunción. And while I was there, we went to mass and it just so happened to fall on, the time change. So we show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, mass is ready to get going and we're the only people in there. And the priest comes out of the sacristy, he looks around, he sees 4 people and they're all gringos. And it's like, goes back in the sacristy. An hour later, all the people show up and we stayed. We just prayed for, did a holy hour in the church. And then the priest comes out and he explains to everybody, from now on, we're going to be meeting at this time. So he just like worked in an extra hour to his schedule. He's like, ooh, I get to sleep in an hour on Sundays.
I get some coverage.
So basically October 7th, 1582, which would have been the Feast of the Rosary, never happened.
Never happened. No.
Never happened. Those dates never happened in history. 10 days in history that didn't exist. That's pretty crazy.
That is.
That's wild.
So based off of these observations and based off that change is why we now use what's called the Gregorian calendar instead of the Julian calendar. And that's what most of the world goes on. Besides the churches of the East, that's why they still use the Julian calendar because of the tradition. And that's why there's a discrepancy between the East and the West on the dates of Christmas and Easter.
Feast
and other
days,
That's
et cetera,
right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I saw that in Saint-Supplé too. They have a similar design architecturally where it allows light in and it strikes this kind of golden line, and you could follow the calendar throughout the year, and they have it marked on the floor that leads up to the wall, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, they had the same thing in the what's called the Basilica of St. Mary of the Angels and the Martyrs, and there's a line on the floor, a brass line that does the same thing. That it's basically a sundial, and that it was another thing that they did to confirm this theory. So, a lot of science, a lot of observation went into it. It's kind of like an Indiana Jones thing where on this day of the year, light shines in under this line and makes 10 days of history disappear. I mean, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
but
it really is.
But it's not the Temple of Doom.
No, that was the worst. That was by far the worst one. That was the worst one. No, okay, no, let me take that back. That was the second the worst one. The worst one was the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
That was
bad. Yeah, they should put that in the Vatican secret archives and put it under seal and never let anyone see it.
They should put it under the Vatican toilet bowl and
tag it and pour some out. You know,
hopefully someone steals that and just gets rid of it.
Yeah.
All right, so
cool. Let's wrap
those are secrets of the Vatican.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Promise not to share on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
This is probably the only time that you're going to hear us say that. Don't share the secrets.
Don't do it.
Go ahead and share it.
All right, so we're wrapping things up now, huh?
Yeah, but we got time for one more thing. Father Rich, you ready?
Put my head on the chopping block.
It's time for the
Inquisition.
Okay.
You don't look so scared.
So, Father Rich, you're aware of the 5 sins that only the Holy Father himself can forgive.
Yeah. Through the Apostolic Penitentiary in Rome.
That's right. So what are those? Defiling the Eucharist or using it in a satanic ritual. Only the Pope can forgive that. Breaking the seal of confession. Priests offering absolution to his own sexual partner, which I think is germane in our own times.
Yeah.
They can't.
Because they're complicit.
They're complicit.
Those sins are complicit.
That right. So they can't forgive each other for their own whatever. Participating in abortion, although that is something that Pope Francis has given the right for
universally to the church. And the American bishops gave that provision to the priests in America.
But it's still because of a indulgence by the Pope that he's allowing. It's still being forgiven under the authority of the Pope.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Now, the 5th one. Using physical harm or attempting to assassinate the Pope.
Person of the Holy Father, yeah.
Okay, so here's the scenario, and I want to see how you answer this.
Ooh, loady.
Oh.
I might have to call up my buddy Don Charlie, who works in the Apostolic Penitentiary on this one.
Okay. A cardinal.
Yeah.
Now, this has happened before in church history. You know, St. Nicholas knocked out,
Arius. Right in the mouth. It's one of my favorite stories.
Punched him in the face.
Jolly old St. Nicholas punched him in the face.
Yeah, Niccolo Mari. He punched Arius right in the face for talking.
Hey, I'm St. Nicky over here.
St. Nicky.
I'll pop you in the face, Arius.
Actually, St. Nicholas actually felt a lot of contrition for that and did a lot of fasting and repentance for using physical.
And that's where
violence.
he got that bowl full of jelly. It turned into, he was very svelte.
Yeah.
He was a very thin man.
We'll talk about St. Nicholas another time. Quit trying to avoid the question of the Inquisition. Answer me, Father. Answer me.
He always does that.
Okay, here's the scenario.
He always does that.
A cardinal.
I'm trying to buy time here.
I know
and
you
get
are.
my brain wrapped around this. It's still morning.
Only forgivable by the Pope.
Okay.
But a cardinal hits the Pope.
Ooh. And the cardinal is the Pope's brother.
No. And the Pope dies.
Ooh. From the strike?
Not necessarily from the strike. He slapped him because they were in an argument. And then a couple days later, the Pope dies.
Of a broken heart.
Right. Now, in the conclave, that bishop who struck the Pope is elected Pope.
Dun, dun, dun.
Who can forgive that sin? And does that create a paradox that makes another unforgivable sin like the blaspheming of the Holy Spirit? So is there actually 2 sins that are unforgivable? Because only the Pope can forgive somebody for hitting the Pope, but the Pope who did it is dead, but you can't forgive yourself.
I think I got an answer. This is the first time that I'm going to... So the Apostolic Penitentiary is one of the tribunal offices that is active in sedis vacante. Okay. So when the seat is vacant, right, the Holy Father, that one office remains open so that the mercy of the seat of Peter is active, right? So in a way, say Cardinale smacked Holy Father,
right,
and he dies
of a broken heart.
Of a broken heart.
Poor guy.
Poor.
How could you do this to me?
How could you do this to me?
So sorry.
So, okay, yeah, you're gonna give a little So he dies from it, right? Now he could still appeal to that office for forgiveness.
What if he's elected before the paperwork goes through?
Well, they pride themselves on the turnaround of a day in the apostolic penitentiary. Know that for a fact.
Wow.
Well,
Capital F.
because popes don't get punched in the face that often.
It's not a very common occurrence.
I mean, people
thank
have
God.
read those canons associated with Papa and the Papa.
So
So I would say that there is still an avenue for him to receive forgiveness through the way that the church is structured.
Right.
In the apostolic penitentiary, one of the tribunal offices that remains
so that he would have to make sure that before accepting
Oh, bingo.
or before his...
Wouldn't you go to confession before you take on a new role?
You would think.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I know before I started these podcasts, I went to confession right before I came out here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too.
So that was
Go to confession, people.
all right. I think that was the most successful Inquisition yet.
So far.
Yeah, so far.
I felt pretty confident
We're
about
gonna bring
that.
you
We gotta
back, though.
sharpen our pencils.
Yeah, that's it.
I always feel like I'm going to lose my head in these things.
Yeah.
No.
You
All right,
play it
guys.
off pretty good.
Try to
out
remain
pretty good.
calm.
All right, so that was the secret of the Vatican.
Yeah. Good show, guys.
There's more secrets, but those are the ones that we wanted to talk about, and the ones we're allowed to talk about. Father Rich got a text from the Vatican, said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Because we had some other material was shut down.
It was shut down.
You know, we got the green light on some of this stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
But as long as you guys keep it secret.
Right. These were false flags that there was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a secret.
All right. So
But if you want to know more, the stuff that we really can't share.
Go to VaticanSecrets.com.
Ryan and Ryan, VaticanSecretTour.com.
That would be funny.
That'd be good. All right. So that's another episode of the Catholic Talk Show, boys. I think we did all right.
I love it.
Good hanging with you guys. You guys, thanks for hanging with us.
And praying for your peace. God bless you and your families and continue to journey with us.
Amen, brothers.
All right, so visit us on CatholicTalkShow.com. From there, you can subscribe on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, any of the things and services that you use to follow podcasts. Make sure that in the comments you leave your comments. Let us know how we're doing. And if you have any ideas for shows or anything that you'd like us to discuss, make sure you leave those comments. We really enjoy reading all those things. So look forward to having you again next time. And guys, sun's starting to come out here, shining down in the beautiful studios of Cast Media and Hollywood. So
Go get some fresh
let's
air.
wrap it up and enjoy it. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. God bless.